All right, good morning, everyone. What a way to start off the week with some great news. Thank you, everyone, for coming. This is the Louisville Metro Emergency Services Vehicle Radio Shop, and it serves all of our first responders. Our police, fire, and EMS vehicles come here to get fit up for action. Police and emergency lights are installed here. Computers, cameras, communications equipment, and other pieces of technology are installed here. We saw just last week with the Givaudan factory explosion and the rescue at the construction site just how essential our first responders are and how important it is that they have the equipment and vehicles they need to get to an emergency quickly and safely, to better patrol our streets and more. People sometimes wonder what all of the money in the city budget pays for. Well, this here is one important example, and that's what we're here to talk about, the city budget. Since I took office, I've gone through the budget line by line to look for ways that we can manage the city's resources as effectively as possible. That line by line review informed recommendations that I made to the Metro Council during the last budget presentation, as well as changes that I've directed our Office of Management and Budget and agencies all across Metro government to make in terms of how we manage, spend, and invest money entrusted to us by the people of our city. And I'm proud to say that we're doing things differently, and it's working. It's paying off. We're seeing a significant increase in revenue because of changes that we've made in our investment strategy. We're also seeing cost savings on the operational side of Metro government as our agencies find ways to be more efficient. Put all of that work together, and I'm proud to announce that for the last fiscal year, Louisville Metro government has a budget surplus of over $16 million. About $10 million of that comes just from our improved investment performance alone. And I want to thank Metro Council President Marcus Winkler and all of our partners on Metro Council for their partnership in crafting a budget and working together for good fiscal management. And I also want to thank our incredible team of people that I have the honor to work with every day at Louisville Metro government. There are 5,000 plus dedicated public servants who work effectively and efficiently every single day for all of the people of Louisville. And this $16+ million surplus means that we can do even more to make our city safer, stronger, and healthier. So today, I'm announcing some of the recommendations that I'm making to Metro Council. I believe that we need to invest in our highest priorities, and that starts with improving public safety. Every resident in every corner of our community deserves to feel safe and be safe in their neighborhood. And that's why we're here, because the work done in this shop is essential to public safety. LMPD, for example, buys about 100 vehicles a year, and they're outfitted right here at this shop before they can go out on the streets to help patrol and prevent crimes. We need more police officers patrolling our neighborhoods, and this investment will help make that happen. Seeing more police cars out on our streets, patrolling neighborhoods, is a top concern that I hear from residents all across our city. It's also something I regularly hear from our police officers when I attend some of the roll calls with Chief Humphrey. I hear this over and over again, the need for more police cars on our streets, and this investment will help make that happen. This vehicle shop needs more space. They struggle sometimes with a backlog because they need more bays so they can get more vehicles processed and out on the street. So I'm proposing today that we invest in expanding this vehicle shop so we can get more vehicles equipped and on the street faster, keeping more people safe. That's just one of more than a dozen recommendations I'm making to Metro Council that will strengthen the work we're doing to keep people safe and to provide essential services. I also recommend that we invest more in cameras to help LMPD prevent and solve crimes. And the work of public safety takes many different forms. Last week, we looked ahead to the winter with our snow team. We have plenty of salt on hand across Metro government, but our snow team needs additional new vehicles to keep our streets clear. And for too long, our city government ignored many important investments in keeping our vehicle fleets operating efficiently. These proposed investments will start making significant improvements. In addition, there are roads and sidewalk projects we can take care of in East Louisville, in South Louisville, in West Louisville to make our streets safer, reduce traffic, and improve neighborhoods. And as I've been talking about since the very first day of my administration, another one of our highest priorities is housing. That includes building new homes and helping people buy homes. That's why I'd like to invest more in Louisville's Metro Down Payment Assistance Program, so more hardworking families can buy homes and begin to create generational wealth for their children and grandchildren. And finally, the area that I'm identifying for the most significant investments from this budget surplus is with Louisville Fire Department. Last week, we celebrated the addition of a new truck for Louisville Fire. That was one item on a long list of investments that we need to make to support the men and women of Louisville Fire Department. And that's why I recommend that we take this opportunity to invest in new equipment along with renovations and upgrades to existing facilities for Louisville Fire. These investments will have to be repeated again in future budgets to catch up. But these investments today that we're announcing are a great start. To talk some more about these investments and their impact, I'd like to introduce the Chief of Louisville Fire Department, Brian O'Neill. Chief?
Well, thank you so much, Mayor Greenberg. As he mentioned, let me back up. The Louisville Fire Department is the third oldest professional fire department in the United States. That brings with it a lot of history and a lot of tradition, and a lot of history means a lot of age. And unfortunately, that means aging equipment and aging houses. So we're very proud of that tradition, but we've got to stay on top of replacement and repair. So to give you a few stats on that, when we look, we just added Truck 4 down to 34th and River Park, which is an amazing, amazing investment for that neighborhood, for the community, for the department. We still have, of our 32 frontline apparatus, we still have 9 of those apparatus that are over 20 years old. We have further another 10 apparatus that are over 15 years old. OSHA and NFPA says that you should have nothing over 15 years old as a frontline apparatus. Obviously, to replace all those right now is not realistic. So what we're presenting to the mayor is a fiscally responsible, but also highly responsible to the community plan for apparatus replacement over the next years, so that we will not only have what we need now, but to make sure that whatever the city looks like 15, 20 years from now, they'll have what they need into perpetuity if we follow this plan. As the mayor mentioned, this is the first step to get there. What we're looking at right now is if we can start a replacement project of several apparatus a year. For many years, we've only been doing one apparatus a year, and with 32, it just doesn't keep up. You lose really quick. So we need to do some catching up. As I mentioned with the age of the fire stations, we have 7 stations that are over 100 years old. We have a further 11 that are over 50 years old. Again, tremendous pride in history and tradition that comes with that, but that's a lot of upkeep. So we are currently about $34 million behind when it comes to deferred maintenance. These are going to be some of the first big steps to stay on top of that. But when you look at those two things, the facilities and the fleet, being the city that we are able to handle those structures, those houses, a little bit more easily and put Band-Aids on them quicker and repairs on them than we can on our apparatus. And that apparatus absolutely has to be the first priority, because when we start falling behind, if you think about the East Broadway church fire that we had about a month ago, we had so many apparatus and personnel committed to that fire, we had to start staffing our backup apparatus as we called in additional firefighters to make sure the rest of the community was protected. At some point, if we're not careful, we're going to run out of backup apparatus. So we need to stay on top of this. So many thanks to Mayor Greenberg and his administration for taking this seriously and making this proposed investment. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks. Thank you very much, Chief. And we're going to provide all the exact dollars for each of these specific proposals that we're proposing to Metro Council this afternoon. My recommendations are designed to maximize the benefits of this budget surplus for the people of Louisville and to make our people and our city safer. We will continue to manage the city's budget with our new approach, focused on the most impactful investments to keep your family safe and to keep our city clean and vibrant and growing. To talk a little bit more about what these investments will mean for this facility right here and the professionals who dedicate themselves to public safety, I'd like to introduce Metro Emergency Services Deputy Director, Kelly Jones.
Thank you, sir. Well, I didn't realize that the chief is the third oldest fire chief in America. You certainly don't look that old. First of all, two words I'd like to say, particularly to the mayor, his staff, and OMB, and that's, Mayor, thank you. Thank you for making the investment here today, for making the allocation. I don't think it gets said often enough. It's always very much appreciated. Today is investment in our personnel, in our agency, in our community. It's very important, and the things that we do here are very important. You say, what do you actually do? A lot of folks that have never been here didn't even know that we exist. We install and we repair emergency equipment first and foremost. For first responders, other city agencies, and other community agencies, LMPD, fire, small cities, parks, works, ABC, and many others. What a lot of folks don't realize is we have over 130 agencies we serve out of this building with over 10,000 radio users. That's a lot. Why is it important? Well, it's how we communicate. It's an investment of safety. And I'll give you an example. I know a lot of folks think my career in law enforcement started on horseback, but it didn't. But I can tell you that 35 years ago, I got in a fight on a Friday night. I was losing ground. I was by myself. I was able to reach over, press the microphone button on my radio laying on the hood of my car, and it was one simple statement: 253, I'm in trouble. I needed two things to happen at that moment. I needed the equipment to work, and I needed someone on the other end of that radio to hear me. And both occurred that night, and I'm still standing here today because of it. This allocation allows us to improve our proficiency and even our storage issues. We've got equipment stored all over these grounds and everywhere that we can fit it and we can make it go. Changes happen fast in this world. Technology, new body camera systems, new in-car systems, LED lights, radio communication equipment. It changes so fast, and so do we, and we need the ability to do that. And the last couple of things I want to say is I want to thank all the first responders for all the things that they did last week when the city was challenged on a couple of different occasions. Thanks to every city agency, every citizen in our community who stepped up to try to improve our community safety. Our city is only as strong as we are collectively, and last week we showed how strong we are and how strong we can be. Today's investment here in this radio shop will make us stronger and safer. Again, I thank the mayor and I thank all of the employees and all of the citizens who make us collectively stronger as a city. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelly. We're going to split this into two here because we also are going to give an update on with respect to the Jiviton factory explosion. But why don't I pause here for a moment and see if there are any questions from members of the media about the announcement that we've just made, and then we'll go on to talk about the Jiviton explosion. Oh, no. Yeah, sure. So the city government has had for several years now has had a significant amount of what's called cash on hand. The federal government through the American Rescue Plan invested a significant amount of funds in the city. That took a while to spend. We had allocated what those investments were, but then it takes a while as the projects are happening for the money to be spent. Or other times where revenue comes in early in a year and then it's spent later in the year. So in every year, there's always additional, if you're managing your budget well, there's additional money that you don't yet need. And so historically, the city had basically just been sitting on that as cash, not earning any material amount of investment. So when I took office, I asked the Office of Management and Budget to change that approach, to start looking for ways that we could safely invest these funds, but generate larger interest rates on the funds to earn more money from interest that could be reinvested like we're doing today. So in last year's budget alone, we earned $10 million more than budgeted in interest income. So the money that the city was sitting on generated interest, just like if you have money in a savings account. We were able, through new approaches to managing those funds, we generated an additional $10 million. That people should not expect that to happen every year, but last year that's what we were able to do, and now we're able to invest that into improving the safety in our city. Did I explain it? Okay. Yeah, so just in general, there are 3 new pieces of equipment that are trucks, engines, what you call them, that will be ordered. And then also there are several fire stations that are getting upgrades to the fire stations as well. Each one of those fire stations has some different needs for improvements, but they're spread across the city. And again, we'll continue to do this. There are a couple new firehouses that we need to build from scratch, but we'll continue to make these improvements in coming years as well. Yeah, so I've already had conversations with leaders of Metro Council, so they are aware of this. This will be formally filed today as a proposed ordinance today, legislation today, and so then they will take it up in their ordinary course, and we hope to get this passed prior to the end of the year. Have they voiced support for it so far? I will let them speak for themselves, but I think there'll be support for a significant part of this, if not all of this. I expect to get good support from the Metro Council on this. All right. Well, thank you for that. We will move on to the second part while we're all together. Last week was, of course, a challenging week for members of all of our first responder community, for Louisville Fire Department, for EMS, for our dispatchers, for LMPD, for everyone that's involved in public safety. You saw all of our first responders in action with respect to the Jivitan explosion response, and also in response to rescuing a construction worker in the downtown LUMED district. I'm pleased to report that investigators from the Louisville Fire Department's arson team and from the United States ATF have been working around the clock since the explosion happened last week, and they have now completed their investigation. So to talk a little bit more about this first phase of investigation that has been completed, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Brian O'Neill, who will talk a little bit and then introduce some other colleagues as well to provide more information, and then we're happy to answer any questions that you all have. Chief O'Neill.
Thank you, sir. So as you all know, last Tuesday, there was a terrible industrial accident over on Payne Street, and we lost 2 community members in that. Immediately, our response deals with the fire, with the explosion, with a potential hazardous material release. And we've told you all along, there was not a hazardous material leak from that. There was no hazardous material release at all, which is somewhat good news in the face of a tragic event. But we immediately went to work to investigate. Our arson bureau here in Louisville is second to none. Arson is one of the most difficult crimes that you can actually try to investigate and get closure on. Their closure rate is second to none. They, however, are a small bureau for the size of this town. They were able to reach out to our friends with the ATF who offered help, and we, of course, accepted that. They went to work right away with investigating, gathering data, talking to people throughout the neighborhood to finish up this investigation. Now, when I say finish the investigation, you must understand this is still an open case. Basically what they've done is collecting all the data, all of the interviews, all the pieces, and they still have a lot of crunching to do. But I'm going to turn it over now to Special Agent Morrow with the ATF and Major Fletcher with our Arson Bureau that can give you a little bit better specific information about that investigation.
Well, good morning. My name is Sean Morrow. I'm the Special Agent in charge for the ATF Louisville Division. And I appreciate the opportunity to come here today to provide an update. Since the incident occurred last Wednesday, our team has made some significant progress in the investigation to determine the origin and cause of the explosion. But before I get into that, I'd like to take just a quick moment to say how impressed I've been working alongside the Louisville Metro Fire Department this past week. To say that they have faced some incredibly complicated calls for service would be an understatement. And without fail, they rose to each one of those occasions. I think it's important to commend the leadership of Chief O'Neill and also Louisville Metro Arson Bureau Major Fletcher for their excellent leadership. Louisville's very lucky to have both of those in their ranks. So last Wednesday, ATF Louisville responded to the factory explosion on Payne Street. Due to the size of the scene, the wide impact, and the undetermined nature of the explosion, the fact that 2 employees were killed and more than a dozen were injured, the ATF National Response Team deployed to assist our local office and the Louisville Metro Arson Bureau in the investigation. Approximately 50 ATF personnel were deployed. As I mentioned last week, that team consisted of special agents, fire investigators, explosive specialists and bomb technicians, forensic chemists, fire protection engineers, electrical engineers, digital forensic media specialists, and intel analysts. Their work involved collecting evidence from the scene, interviewing several employees, citizen witnesses, nearby residents, business owners, and a number of other individuals with important information about the business of the equipment inside the factory. Over the course of 2.5 days, our investigative team, the Arson Bureau and ATF, conducted more than 135 interviews and canvassed or assessed impact to nearly 200 properties in the community, both residential and commercial. And as the chief mentioned, although the investigation is ongoing, we are confident in the information that we have, and we were able to make a few important determinations and provide some important information to the public. First, there's no ongoing threat to public safety. The scene is contained, it's secure, and the plant is no longer in operation. Despite an incredible amount of damage, the investigative team was able to recover internal surveillance video leading up to the blast, as well as a hard drive, a black box, if you will, that contained important data for cooking vessel number 6, including historical performance settings. The investigation showed that the origin of the explosion was cooking vessel number 6, located on the south side of the facility. The data analysis is ongoing, but we were able to definitively say that cooking vessel number 6 failed, and that led to a catastrophic event. We interviewed several employees who were present, who provided important information about what they observed prior to the incident. Although the investigation is not final and it'll take a little bit of time for us to finish up, we're comfortable with the information that we have to say that this incident was an accidental event. It was an industrial accident, and there's no indication anyone did anything intentional to cause the explosion. Over the coming days, the investigative team will continue to put their findings together and wrap up our initial phase and issue a final origin and cause report. As the mayor and chief mentioned previously, the property was released back to the company yesterday, and Louisville Metro Fire and ATF are no longer on scene. There will certainly be some ongoing regulatory investigations from a variety of agencies and inquiries by insurance companies, as is customary in these type of events. This is an incredibly tragic incident. We hope that promptly providing this information brings some relief to everyone, including those that lost loved ones or were seriously injured. Thank you.
All right, well, we hope that update is helpful for everyone that's been following along. Again, our condolences go out to the families of the 2 victims of the explosion. We'll continue to stay involved, but we think it's incredibly important to communicate as quick as possible, as openly and transparently as possible, following incidents like that. And so thank you, Special Agent in Charge Morrow, for that great and thorough update. I think they're happy to take questions also if they can provide any extra questions at this time.
Well, there's still, so in terms of cooking vessel, obviously the facility makes a number of products that go into food or cosmetics, and in their manufacturing process, there is a process to cook those materials. They have a heating and cooling. This particular vessel was a container that had a substance that they manufactured. There's some indication that the vessel did not vent properly, and that caused an overheating and explosion, overpressurization, if you will. Well, I want to be, as I mentioned, there's still going to be some regulatory investigations that are going to be ongoing. We've talked to a number of employees that were present the day of and employees that were not present. There is some indication that there had been some maintenance issues with that particular vessel, but we'd like for the regulatory folks to get to the bottom of exactly the sequence of events. Well, there are a variety of state agencies. Obviously, OSHA will be interested. There's a Buller Association that will take a look at that. And so those companies will be working directly with the factory to gain access and begin that process as early as today. So there obviously it was a catastrophic explosion. It's essentially leveled a commercial factory, and so there is debris from the building itself, and then of course the manufacturing components inside of it. But yes, cooking vessel number 6, it did have some of those components scattered across the neighborhood as well. There was a large piece of cooking vessel number 6 on Payne Street. You should stay up here. Make a question if you want to join. So the surveillance video has the manufacturing floor on it. It had video surveillance of the manufacturing area, including cooking vessel number 6, and you can see a failure of the tank that begins right before the video cuts out, which is when we believe the explosion occurred. Well, you can see some of the deformation of the tank right before the explosion. Right now, as I mentioned before, the investigation is still ongoing. We have the purpose of today, we wanted to come out and provide the community with some important information so that they understood what these initial findings were. But we still have work to do, and that will involve completing our case file, issuing a final origin and cause report. And once that's complete, agencies that are interested may file a request through the Freedom of Information Act and gain access to those documents. In order for us to get a good understanding of exactly what happened, we have recovered some of those. Some of those documents may be recovered in the ongoing regulatory investigations as well. But yes, we have a sufficient amount of information. We've conducted, as I mentioned, more than 135 interviews with employees and witnesses in the community. We've had the opportunity to look at the surveillance video. We've had the opportunity to do some initial analyzation of the hardware that was associated with this cooking vessel number 6, and so we're very confident in our determination that this was in fact an industrial accident. Yes.
Safety is critically important. I mean, we're here today talking about the city making investments in public safety. People often think that that is just confined to the police department or the fire department, but as this explosion shows, we need to be concerned, and we are concerned with safety all times at every day in all walks of life, including when people are at work. And so I think it is very important that all employers in this community and everywhere continue to redouble their efforts with respect to safety of their employees and workforce. I know we've got great corporate citizens all across the community that talk about this all of the time. I go to job sites all of the time where they're talking about how many hours, how many days, how many weeks, how many months they've been without workplace injuries, that safety comes first. I think that's very admirable, and I think that's very important for companies to follow. I should mention, speaking of the company, there will be a community meeting at 6 p.m. today that the company will have representatives at, but also I'm pleased to let you all know that our administration will also have representatives there as well. A couple of my deputy mayors, Deputy Mayor George and James, will be there, as well as others from various agencies that have been involved in the response. We think it's critically important to remain engaged with the neighbors, with the impacted people, until they have their lives back on the right track. Yeah, I don't have enough information on that yet. Again, as you just heard, the investigation continues. I think it's very important that we continue to learn all of the information, but we certainly want to learn more. And I totally understand, the concern that the victims have regarding this explosion. This will be the last question, Emma.
I'm not. So I'm not. I don't. Obviously, I can't view the photograph you're talking about, but there was in fact indication that some of the metal from cooking vessel number 6 was carried as far as Payne Street. That's right, and some was recovered on Payne Street.
They produce a caramel coloring. The black box contains data regarding the cooking vessel itself, including pressures and temperatures of the vessel and the mixture inside. It also includes data regarding the control processes of what we're going on to try to remedy.
I'm going to cut you off there just because we've got to get going, but I just want to end with a final thanks, and that final thanks is to all of the first responders and their agencies that are working hard, whether it's in response immediately or in the aftermath in respects to the investigation. I also want to thank my colleagues from Louisville Metro Government. Many are here today from the Office of Management and Budget, from our Accelerator team and others that have worked so hard to make this budget surplus possible and give us the opportunity to continue to invest back in our community, to invest back in our first responders, to invest back in other parts of our city, to continue to make Louisville safer, stronger, and healthier. Thank you all so much, and have a good day.